morning, everyone. I hope you are starting the day well. Just letting in everyone. Sorry, you got more people. Admit all. I found an admit all button. That'll help the process.
Yeah, it's not an exclusive club yet, Tom.
Not quite. Thank you, everyone, for making the time this morning and for joining us. I'm just going to give it another sort of minute for more people to join. We still got people jumping in. Just one more minute. We'll start at 3 past. There you go. Another person to admit. While we wait for everyone, if you don't mind putting yourself on mute while Shashi and I do the introductions, but then this is going to be a very interactive session, so you'll be encouraged to participate. And you're welcome to keep your cameras on. This is the first of the sort of compliance forum type events, so we want to make sure that everyone starts to get to know each other. We're trying to create a community here. Brilliant, 3 minutes past. I will keep trying to admit people if more appear. So thank you very much for joining us today. What is this all about? What have we gathered you here for? And who are we? So I'm Tom, Head of Policy and Public Affairs at the BVRLA, and this is a little bit of a Ask Us Anything session with myself and Shashi. If you want to introduce yourself, Shashi.
Good morning, everybody. I apologize to those of you who already know me, but my name is Shashi Maharaj, Director of Legal and Membership, and as Tom says, at your disposal today.
So we have created and launched this year a new forum in the BVRLA called the Compliance Forum. And I've spoken to lots of members about this, and one of the things that really struck me is that it's not something which we perhaps can explain in an email. And so we thought to create a little informal session at the start of this Thursday to just chat to members about it a little bit more. I know some of those of you on the call have already signed up, or your organization has already signed up, and you'll be coming and joining us on the 20th. And others on this call, you probably don't quite know what the Compliance Forum is all about. So what we wanted to do is give a little bit of context, a little bit of understanding of what this all is, answer any and all questions you have, and then we can take it from there. So the introductory place is, well, what is the Compliance Forum and why has the BVRLA set it up? Well, everyone on this call should be aware that there's been an absolute uptick in regulatory movement in the last few years. We've had the consumer duty, we've had the changes to AR regulations, we have had a consultation around reforming the Consumer Credit Act. We also have movements in the ESG space. And on all these fronts, what has become increasingly clear to us is that the BVRLA needs to be at the absolute forefront of regulatory change. What's also been quite clear to me in my conversations with members across these sort of extensive consultation periods is we need to create more depth within membership, not just for being able to get through compliance day to day, but to have space for strategic thought around compliance and regulation and a strategic positioning of where the industry wants to go and should go. And we have our day-to-day activities. We have a wonderful program of readiness for the consumer duty, for example, that Shashi and his team are leading. And we've done a huge amount on that. And that's going to carry on. But what we wanted to create was a space for where we can create a sort of cream on top of the milk of the BVRLA, where a professional network can emerge of compliance professionals and business professionals and legal professionals in the rental and leasing space who really are absolutely at the forefront of compliance and not just accepting what regulatory change happens to them, but actively trying to influence and think about what the direction that the sector wants to see regulation goes. The further from the regulatory sort of center you are and more on the periphery, like rental and leasing product, the less familiar people are often with the regulatory space, and specifically what happens if that perimeter moves or how that perimeter might move or might not move for the sector. And we really want to try and prove that. So we have a very successful model of forums for other spaces within the BVRLA sphere, which are very technical, challenging, and we want to try and be ahead. These are technical and operations management and residual value and remarketing. Both of these have forum streams. And effectively, what we've done with the compliance forum is mirror an existing successful model, which is a series of 3 half-day conferences across the year with a heavy focus on networking and exceptionally strong speakers, where we can try and create a space for people to learn and try and create a space for people to build that professional network, which we think is so crucial to having that strategic compliance community within the BVRLA. So we think everyone who is involved in this space should be joining the compliance forum. We would love it if 100% of membership were members. We understand that's probably not going to be the case, but we would love to see as many members as possible get involved and try and create a massive groundswell for this. So that's the macro picture. And I'll quickly now hand over to Shashi to talk a bit more of the detail of what you can look for excitedly in our 20th of April event. Over to you, Shashi.
Thanks a lot, Tom. Just 2 points for me to underscore what Tom was saying. I mean, for you, the question is rather simple. Why should you join, right? Now, for me, the hallowed ground between where the regulations start and where we can get all the experts together and tell you about the regulations, that hallowed ground is where you bring your facts, your issues, your problems in the industry into that space so we can actually address them. The law in itself or regulation in itself is empty. It's only how it's applied to your issues that make us stronger. So this forum, for me, is that opportunity. It's a place for you, and it's a place for me to tackle those issues that I see, or those queries that I see almost day in and day out from you, to tackle it once and for all, and so that we can have a position. Also, the other bit is, Tom mentioned the strategic part. You know, as some of you know, we've tried to get in front of regulation here, and I think we've had really good interaction with regulators. We've had really good interaction at the legislation level, and most of the time, you know, it surprises me because we have to explain to people what is hire really, what is leasing, because the focus usually is on the purchase products. So I think it's a really, you know, from a strategic, operational, and financial level, it just makes sense to be in a position to be able to properly represent your needs and to understand them. And this is a tool we can use for that. When it comes to the 20th, to now just give you evidence of what I've said to you, the agenda we've planned, and I must say, you know, very ably supported, and I'm very grateful to Shoesmiths, who will host it in this first instance as a key sponsor. We've tried to take the key issues or topics that we've sort of gleaned from questions you've had, from issues that are topical. So we would kick off with a deep dive into commissions. Some of you may know Roger Pothitter from last year, from Shoesmiths, really a trusted partner of the BVRLA into looking into these difficult issues. So we're going to kick off with that. We'll have a session from Roger who will look into this, and there'll be some time for questions. Now, if so the trend is anything to go by, I know I've had a significant number of queries and questions on this rather not insignificant topic of commission. So again, as I was saying earlier, this is where the rubber meets the road, where you have an expert, we bring your issues to the experts, and then we have some sort of dialogue and forum to help you navigate your way through the legislation. We're then also planning a panel to follow, and I'm really grateful, and I can't take the credit, unfortunately, solely, but Tom's team has done a really great job in getting the FCA to be present on our panel. We also invited FOS, and they've accepted. And Tom, I'm sure that you'll agree with me that these are confirmed invitations. So FOS will be there to answer your questions. We've also planned to have on that panel a broker representative and a funder representative, as well as Deloitte. And Tom tells me, and I'm reliably informed by our team who've put together the panel, that the Deloitte people will have an experienced speaker who's had experience in introducing the changes in the insurance sector. So again, you can see this panel, you have on one hand, you have the regulator, On the other hand, you have the people who are regulated. So again, this principle of bringing the experts together, those who make the rules and those who have to follow it. So to me, I think in that session, I think it's going to be quite a challenging session, because in that session, if I just look at some of the queries we've had recently, a simple one, which I'm sure you'll all agree, co-manufacturers, what is it under the consumer duty? How do you apply it? Etc. etc. So again, we have the people to ask at the session. So that is all. The first half of the forum, my thinking or our thinking is that's the status quo. That's where we are at the present moment. Then we want to look a little bit into the future. So what does the future hold in the regulatory landscape? Well, most of you may be familiar with a rather small act called the Consumer Credit Act, only been around since 1974. Well, there's a sea change potentially coming with the Treasury looking at reviewing it. So we've got one of our suppliers, Global Counsel, who are really clued up on this. And if some of you had attended the workshop we had on this a couple of weeks back, the amount of feedback and the amount of interaction and engagement we had on this was excellent. So again, we've invited him to come along to give you a really clear indication of where he sees the change journey going on the Consumer Credit Act. And I think that's again an opportunity to engage and ask difficult questions or simple questions, depending where you sit. As Tom talked about, being close to the center or in the periphery of regulation. One of them, for instance, is should regulated hire be dealt with in the same way as regulated credit? Just something for your bedtime, easy yes or no answer. But again, difficult questions like that, I think this team of people, or you listening to this, these are key issues for the future of our industry. And it's really great that you engage. And then lastly, we'll end, which if we get here, is a panel on motor finance in the future. Here, we've got some really great speakers. We've got, or panelists rather, we've got Aidan Daly from the FLA, who's agreed to come, as well as we've got some legal professionals that we've invited as well as Octopus EV, one of our key members. So again, this mix of experts, people who understand or have a good understanding of where the future will develop, as well as practitioners. So that in a nutshell is the sort of scope of the compliance forum on the 20th. And I hope you'll find that not only is it compelling, we've got the key people there to answer your questions, but also I hope it's helpful, because my experience of some of these events is people actually get to ask the difficult questions in person directly to the people who can answer them. That was all I was planning to say, Tom. Is that okay?
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect. And if there are any questions, please feel free to ask them. I think the only other point to make is that at the event, we've already had requests for folks from FOS, from Treasury, and from elsewhere to come along to the event. So this is about establishing the BVRLA and its members in the sector as not just passive participants, but also movers and shakers in the space, which I think is absolutely important. But we'll be publishing the full agenda early next week, so you can take it for reference. A colleague has put the registration details in the chat if you want to join the forum. But for the next 15 minutes, Shashi and I are at your disposal. If you have any questions, if they're silenced, that's totally fine. But if you have any questions about the forum, you'll see on the slide we've got shared some of the other issues we plan to focus on in the rest of the year. Things like ESG is definitely going to be a focus in July, and it's a much wider thing. And to be honest, the forum, all our forums are owned by the members and the participants. So if there is something which is on your agenda which you think, wow, this is keeping me up at night, or I wish I had more insight, or I really want to hear from the top speaker in this space, that's something which you flag with us and we facilitate it. Yeah, I'll pause for breath and let anyone who has any questions ask them.
You can ask anything aside from consumer duty questions. Just kidding. No? Well, seems we did a good enough job there, Tom.
Well, if there's absolute silence, then I'm assuming that all the members on this call will be signing up to the forum, and I'll be seeing you all on the 20th of April at Shoesmiths in London, which would be wonderful. I don't know if there's anything, Wayne, which you want to say. I saw Wayne, you were on the call. If there's anything you want to jump in before we close off?
No? I think
No word from Wayne.
I'll just leave you with this thought. And it's a bit of a hackneyed phrase, but I think, if for us, this is really important. When we are approached by regulators or when we are approached by stakeholders, one of the key questions they ask us is, what evidence do you have? What is the nature, extent, and breadth and scope of the submissions you make? Why do you make those? And for us, it's crucial in order to maintain our credibility that we have the evidence, we have the case studies, we have evidence to say, we've spread the message far and wide. This is a tool. The forum is just but one tool that we use. We have, as some of you know, we've got committees that deal with things. We have working groups that deal with particular topics. So I can only encourage you, please be part of the conversation. Help us put your point of view to those that make the decisions.
We have a question in the chat, Shashi, at last. It's one for you. Will there be any time on the agenda to discuss and assist with writing a fair value statement for leasing brokers?
Very good question. Now, two things to say to you. Shoesmiths, in fact, are involved in the process. We have collaborated with the FLA to provide, now I hate to use the word template, but we will provide a checklist. It's in the process of being drafted or finalized, rather. And Shoesmiths have been instrumental in that process. We will provide a fair value assessment and target market assessment set of questions that we hope will function as a template for you to refer to. It's in production. As for the event itself, well, to the extent that you can put that question to the panel and take input from that, of course.
There are some great questions coming in now. So we said, outside of these events, is there an intention to carry on the compliance forum on a more informal basis to respond to regulators, consultations, papers, etc.? 100%. We will be looking to the group of people who are in the compliance forum to help inform that. We have working groups which we would look for them to join and feed back into, but 100% this is about creating a resource to feed back into that loop and to create that positive situation.
Yes, and I just supplement. Sorry, Tom. Just supplement that. Come back to my point earlier about the need to have credible evidence, right? Eventually, we want to create this group. So we've got a legal and compliance working group, but now with the forum attached to it, we think there could be almost a bigger engine supplying crucial information on key topics. So, I can foresee later in this year, we're probably going to need more input on the CCA reform.
Yes, completely correct.
This would be a key tool to help us get that. We obviously, there'll be other bits, in ESG, for example, will definitely come into sharp focus towards the end of the year. Again, another area where we'll probably look to exploit this opportunity.
If we can't make the 20th, will there be an available online or video link? I am afraid not. We're not doing hybrid events. There will be an online event on the 4th. But such a central part of this forum structure is the networking. And so there will be drinks after the event at Shoesmiths. They've kindly supplied that. So we don't do hybrid events. There'll be an online one on the 4th, as I say, but unfortunately there won't be recordings. The tickets, though, when you sign up to the forum, they transferable across an organization. It's not an individual who signs up, it's the organization. So we would encourage colleagues to come or to rotate tickets around different colleagues for different events if the topics of more of interest to perhaps your business colleagues or versus legal colleagues versus compliance colleagues, whatever it might be. One for you, Shashi. Will there be any guidance on good outcomes within leasing?
Yeah, really easy question. That yes, on the basis that as this develops, as you know, we've got a consumer duty page. So where, for instance, we were requested to work with the FLA to produce this template, for instance. Indeed, that will be a bit of guidance. But the point is, as things develop, so as they unpack the consumer duty, as the FCA looks into it, as they issue a bit more of a interpretation of the rules, yes, we would definitely seek to produce guidance to support that. I mean, just two things in particular. There was the letter on the 1st of March from the FCA, where they've written to the motor finance sector. We were given advance notice. We put it in the notification to into our weekly updates. And now, of course, as the FCA unpacks what does implementation look like, what does good implementation look like, we'd obviously bring it to you hot off the press as soon as we.
And I also think it's a key space where you can ask about, if you have questions around what good outcomes look like, that panel will be very capable in answering them. It's probably the most capable panel we'll put together to be able to answer that.
In fact, Tom, actually, you've just spurred an idea. If you are coming to the conference, and I hope to see you there, it'll be good if you prepare in advance, because I can tell you as a fact, right, the FCA and FOS will be there. So, it's probably a good time to take a sort of lob around your compliance team or your legal team, and that one particular question that you couldn't answer and all the experts in your team couldn't answer, well, here's an opportunity to be able to ask the FCA directly or FOS directly.
Yeah. Then we got a question: will all the events have the same content? No problem at all answering that one. No, they won't. Each event is going to be quite unique. We fully expect, so the April event is about commission, consumer duty, and Consumer Credit Act reform, so 3 C's that we're facing right now. July, we fully expect to have a very strong ESG theme for at least half of the day. The other half of the day is yet to be seen. What issues have bubbled up? Will it still be consumer duty? Will we want to be looking at something more around another area of compliance and regulation that has emerged? And that's where I say these forums are always owned by the members. Just this week we were having conversations around what's going on in this subscription space with BEIS, formerly BEIS, now Department of Business. There are things which emerge and change. We've got ongoing conversations with the CMA around what it is that's going on in that space and how they're regulating rental, etc., through us. So we might well see something emerge which becomes absolutely crucial for the sector, or it might just be something a little bit more strategic and further out. But we always would be looking to the forum members to try and inform what those topics should be. But we're very capable of filling them in ourselves.
Yeah, I'd also sorry, Tom, just I'd also make the point, don't forget to be aware of the sort of channels we also use, the Legal and Compliance Working Group or committee. So if there are topics you want or you'd like to see at any of these forums, then, please feed them through. Sorry, Tom, you're going to say?
No. I think that answered it perfectly. There are many ways to get in touch. We're just an email away. But I hope that answers. No, each of these events is going to be quite unique, tackling a different area. It's not going to be repetitious. And I think that's the last of the questions on the chat. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time today. As I say, the link to sign up is right at the top of the chat. We really want to see you there. We really want to see as many members as possible get involved with this. It's only going to be a good thing, hopefully, for your business, but also for the reputation of the industry as a whole. So please, hopefully we'll see you on the 20th of April. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.